going on, everybody? I'm Jeff Kirkshin, and welcome to Do What You Love. And today's guest is super talented. And for her age as well, you can hear her laughing because she already knows I am a huge fan of Allie Bauman on the podcast today. Allie, you
Hi.
are amazing. And I am in shock and awe to think that we are the same age and you are, and we graduated the same year from Syracuse, and that you are doing the amazing things that you're doing in New York. You are a news reporter
Thank
and
you.
anchor for CBS. I mean, you are, wow. I mean,
I still like hearing for your age because I feel like I can only milk that for so much longer. So I'm glad I still have that.
well, and I milk that for as long as possible because when is my job going to become unimpressive to people? Like when I'm in my 30s, they'll be like, "Oh, you have a good job." Now they're like, "Oh, you have a morning show. That's so cool for your age." And I'm like, would it be cool if I was 45? But no, but you are truly incredible. And you have been working in and around New York since we graduated college in 2015
Yeah.
from Syracuse University. And for those that don't know, working in New York City, when it comes to TV or radio, that is the goal. That is the number one
That's the
market
goal.
in the country.
That's my goal, at least, or was my goal.
And it was your goal, and you got
Mhm.
there quicker than some people never get there. Most people never get there. Was this kind of surreal for you to be moving up the ranks so quickly to be in New York, pretty much your first year
Yeah.
out of college?
Yeah, beyond surreal to the point where I was like, yeah, am I getting punked? Like, how did this happen? How did I get here? Because yeah, at Newhouse, like it's like they have to like sit you down once a year and tell you like, okay, you're gonna move somewhere that you don't like. You're
Mhm.
gonna have to live in the middle of nowhere for a few years before you move somewhere you want. And I was like, totally on board. I was like, yeah, okay. I was, even when we were like applying to jobs and stuff, I was like looking all up and down. I knew I wanted to stay kind of on the East Coast and from the East Coast. So I knew I wanted to stay in that area. So I was like looking for stuff and I was totally ready to move wherever I needed to move. But then I saw that News 12 in the Bronx, which is like a small cable station.
Mhm.
It like comes with your cable box if you have cable vision in New York. It was only in the Bronx. There was like a Bronx bureau and a Brooklyn bureau. And they were, kind of hired people out of, freshly out of school. It was a lot younger because it's like, all MMJ stuff. You have to, shoot and edit all your own stuff. So I was like, oh, that seems like I could be in the city I want to end up in anyway, in the Bronx. So I did that and I loved it. It was, I was like literally diving into the deep end in the sense of like, here I am, this little white girl from the suburbs, and now I'm alone in the Bronx every day interviewing people. It was a good culture shock where it like totally just made me feel so much more comfortable being in New York City alone. Because you kind of had to be either you had to be comfortable or you had to leave. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there was no like being timid in that situation. And so I was shooting everything and I was editing everything. And I loved it and stuff. And I was putting my stories on YouTube. And then the like chief photographer at CBS in New York saw some of it, and he called me and asked me if I wanted to interview for a photographer's position to be like a camera woman. And I was like, not even a year out of school. So I was kind of like, this is so weird. They want me to be a camera person, but I guess, I'll go for the interview. Like,
Right.
okay, yeah,
You never
why
know.
not? Yeah, like, I'll get my foot in the door. I'll make some connections and maybe I will be, do this. I don't know. So I interviewed with him and in the garage, interviewed with him, and he was super nice and showed me all the equipment and stuff. And I was like, okay, this might work. And then he was like, oh, while you're here, do you want to come meet the news director? And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna say no. Like, so I'm like, yeah, okay. So they bring me upstairs and I kind of have informal interviews with like the assistant news director and the news director. And then a couple days later, they called me and they were like, hey, we want to offer you a reporter position. And I was like, are you sure? Are you really sure? And then,
Wow.
yeah, 5 years later, here I am.
I never knew that story, and I think that teaches anybody listening to our podcast today is that you always have to take every opportunity. There's nothing that's too big or too small for you, because here you are saying, oh yeah, I mean, I like shooting video. I could make this happen every opportunity. And then the next moment you're being hired as a reporter as opposed to a camera woman in the number one market in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I was super super grateful. I hope I still am. And I think I was very humble in the sense of like, I, was just happy that they even knew my name in any sense, that I was like, oh my, that's where I wanted to be. Like you're saying, like I went to school and was like, I want to end up being a reporter in New York City. And so when I got, when that happened, it was like, I couldn't believe, I was there. I had the most imposter syndrome possible because I was so young and, probably unqualified, definitely unqualified
Yep.
for it. So
We
I
all
was
are.
like, I had the biggest, the biggest
The whole
imposter syndrome.
3 to 5 years, Allie, it's all crap.
Mhm.
For everybody
It's all
listening right
crap.
now, it's all corporate crap, okay? If you're good enough for the job, they're going to give you the job, okay? And you just have to be
Yeah.
humble enough to be able to recognize there's things I still need to learn. There's things I still need to get better at. And a great lesson one of our Newhouse professors always taught me is good luck comes to those who work the hardest. And that was something that I always embodied, and I felt like you embodied it. And for, I want to make sure everybody knows that you and we actually worked on a show together. I should say, I worked for you on your show.
You did me the pleasure of being so patient with me.
In college,
So.
Allie created an absolutely incredible show on a student-run station at Syracuse University called Citrus TV. And myself and Cassie DeLaura were chosen to be the co-host of Allie Bauman's Brainchild. And it was such an honor. I mean, you and I had known each other quite a bit through school, but to be chosen to work more or less for you and make your dream come alive, that was really cool.
I mean, thank you. You and Cassie were amazing. And I think back about that sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? I didn't know how to produce a show. Like, what the hell was I putting, poor Jeff through? And so thank you for being patient with me. And it's so funny because I was watching I think it was the Grammys a few weeks ago. And all of a sudden Cassie pops up on my screen, like in the commercial break. And I was like, oh my God, I got so excited.
Yeah, Cassie DeLaura doing very, very big things for E and E Online. She is crushing it. And for people who are watching, I think a lot of people follow our footsteps, right? They want to be a reporter, they want to be a radio host, they want to be a sports reporter, anchor, whatever it might be. They want to be the next Erin Andrews. For you, do you have a piece of advice that could kind of help get through all the clutter? Because the day I walked into Newhouse, I was intimidated as hell by people like you, like Cassie, like all these other people who are my peers, who are my friends, but everybody was the best in their school on their little TV station. Everybody was the best of that. Do you have advice to kind of cut through for people who are going and starting their journey in college to do what we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think just everyone is intimidated in Newhouse. And then, like going into your jobs, and I'm intimidated going to work still every day, and not necessarily because I'm intimidated by my coworkers at this point, but more so because I'm intimidated by I'm meeting such interesting and cool people all the time that it's always intimidating. So, I think there's something good about like embracing that intimidation, because it kind of, you have to like muster up that little anxiety and like, use that to just kind of jump in and not be afraid. Like, so at least for me, like so much of my day is kind of like swallowing my pride in a sense of like, hey, I'm going to look silly while I do this, or it's going to be weird. This person doesn't want me asking these questions and it's going to be weird, but I just got to swallow my pride and do it. And I think especially in this field, like that is so important. Like you're never done having to swallow your pride and just kind of be okay with looking silly or looking bad in a sense. And, the good stuff comes out of that.
Well, I think one movie that comes to mind when it comes to what you do, and it's probably a terrible comparison, would be Anchorman and or Bruce Almighty, where they see these journalists working. And to your thought about swallowing your pride, I remember in the movie Anchorman, Veronica Corningstone has to go to the cat fashion show and do a whole stand-up and do a package. For you, in your time as a professional reporter, what is by far the most interesting, fascinating, out there story you've ever reported on?
Out there's those were a lot of adjectives, because there's different ones for different different qualities.
You've been reporting for 5 years professionally and years while we were in Syracuse, so I'm sure there's a lot of great, interesting stories you've reported on.
Yeah. God, there's the one that comes to mind kind of recently is I've been doing a lot of reporting on like, homelessness and mental health and like the parole system in the city because New York is, struggling a lot with all those things right now. So that's become a little bit of my unofficial beat. But recently I interviewed this guy who was in federal prison for um 20 or 30 years or something like that, for murder. And he got out a couple years ago and kind of turned his life around. And he was just one of the most interesting people I've ever spoken to, and just wise people I've ever spoken to. He was so like, I, it was like it was one of those interviews where it was way longer than we could ever possibly have time to put
Right.
on air, where I was like, I just kind of want to talk to you. Like, I just want to keep talking to you more. So that's definitely one that comes to mind. So much of this like gets jumbled in my head.
Oh, well, I mean, you're doing a story or more a day, so I can only imagine how many great ones you have. I recall, and I don't envy what you do, because to do what you do every day, it takes a very special person. And speaking from my tiny no experience as a reporter, doing it for NCC News Classic at Syracuse University, it's hard. It's hard to find a story. It's hard to find your sources. It's hard to pull this all out, especially when you were doing it backpack journalist style, where you shoot, you write, you edit, and you produce and put it all together yourself, and then hopefully have it by the time the show runs.
Yeah, one of the like most underrated hard parts about that was honestly the driving, which sounds so silly, but like because now I get spoiled because now I work with a photographer, so I don't have to shoot and I don't have to, and it's she drives around and stuff. So like once in a while earlier in the pandemic, they were having us drive separately, so I would have to drive, and I'm like, damn, it's so much harder. The day's so much harder when I can't like do work in the car and have to drive around the city and do stuff. Like it just puts you in so much more of a stressful mood starting out, and that's like the bare minimum of the job. But
that's valuable time. That's valuable time in the car where you can write and get ready for what you need to be doing. Now, Allie, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's really important, me being a huge fan of what you do, and we have so many friends across the country who are putting in time. I don't want to go too far into detail, but I just can't stop thinking about how my friends and people I went to college with and people I know are being considered fake news. The news media is out to get us and all of that. And this is not political in the sense of, I want everybody listening or watching on YouTube to know that this is Allie Bauman, right? She's a human being. She's a person. She has a job, and she's been trained to do this. And have you ever had problems with this? I'm sure you get comments all the time on Facebook of people saying that, because I see it on our local stations here in Vegas all the time.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not political because it's literally from both ends. It's extremes on both ends of the spectrum. So it's not necessarily one side or the other. Yeah, and it's definitely a lot, more, more as we go on and stuff. Because, when we started out, fake news, it wasn't really a term, right? Like that wasn't, it was kind of a term, but like not nearly as much as it is now. So we've kind of been working with the growth and metamorphosis of fake news and stuff. Yeah, and it sucks because, like you're saying, like I'm just a person. I'm just a person trying to like tell stories and trying to like get stuff out there. I'm not like what people think of as like a talking head, anchor on, who's on cable news and trying to just get reaction all day. Like that's not what I do. I go out and I interview people on all different types of subjects and stuff. So yeah, it sucks and it hurts because like I understand, people are angry at the media, and I get it. But yeah, it hurts because it's like I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to help people, So people will yell that in the street sometimes, or like whatever you post, there's gonna be comments on it and stuff. But
always. But I think that the thing that you hit on that I think is so important is you're not this anchor who has somebody whispering in their ear saying, make sure you're really playing to this side or to the other side. You're out there to be an objective journalist, and you and I got the same education. And as we all know, when it comes to working, you learned more in your first 6 months than you even did in 4 years at Syracuse University. And so I just wanted to kind of make that disclaimer so people understand that, like, this whole mainstream media, this whole fascination with the media is always wrong or they have a belief or whatever. Allie's trained to do this. She's a professional, and you need to remember that. And me, I never talk about politics because I hate politics because I get to play music for a living. So God bless for what you do and what you get to do. And, you know, Allie, this has been a hell of a year and a half to be a reporter.
Yeah.
And you were kind of in the epicenter of being in New York, and COVID shut everything down. And when no one was leaving their homes, I mean, how many straight days did you do a story about COVID-19? Was it 200?
Oh my God. Yeah. Cool. It was up until, sadly, up until George Floyd died, because then I switched over and did the protests and stuff for, you know, 2 or 3 all summer basically. So it was literally COVID, and then I switched gears and did social justice stories. It's been a wild year. We actually, because like New York City shut down the end of March, and our CBS building, there was actually an outbreak before the shutdown. So we got kicked out of the building like a couple days before the rest of the city shut down. And that was such a weird time because we're all at home, like no one was transitioning to remote learning really. Right. And all of a sudden we had to like transition to remote and stuff. And, you know, no one, I remember so there was an outbreak in the building, right? And they told us, you know, everyone was so, just didn't know. Everyone was so uninformed and ignorant, not meaning to be, but because we just didn't know, you know, they were telling us not to wear masks at that point. So they had a couple cases of COVID in our building, and they told everyone by bringing us all into the same room. I know. Looking back on it, you're like, what on earth? But like, that's just how we did things, you know? Like, it was just, we didn't know better. And so they brought us all in the same room to tell everyone that, okay, we're gonna have to shut down because there's COVID in the building. And yeah, so then we all went home, and it's still not fully open. So I'm still like half working from home, but I enjoy it because, you know, I go out anyways, so it's just one less stop in my day
to go into the office. And that just sounds, Allie, to me like another meeting that could have been an email. I don't know if you have that coffee mug. It's very, very popular
that's like
on
the
Pinterest.
Meeting that could have been an email.
Most definitely should have been an email. So you were on the COVID beat, and then you went to you know, social justice and the George Floyd, and obviously not so recently we had the police officer was charged and formally convicted of his charges. And you know, for you, it must have been such an interesting learning experience to be in a major city like New York that is so diverse, and being a reporter and talking to boots on the ground during Black Lives Matter movement and Black Lives Matter protests. Is there something you took away from this that you're like, okay, cool, I am smarter because of this?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that I still regard it and have always regarded it as just like such a privilege of being able to like be there in some way, you know, be a part of that, you know, just witnessing that history, which at this point is so cliche to say, but like it really was incredible to see the power of so many people and like the energy of so many people. And remember, we went from, you know, COVID, where the end of March, April, May, I was still going out and doing interviews, but I was, you know, these streets were empty. I hadn't seen, you know, more than 5 people in a room or at a time in months. And all of a sudden going from being so isolated to being all of a sudden thousands of people are out and are so passionate. I mean, that in and of itself was crazy. But I mean, just having the privilege really of being able to like talk to people and have a reason to be able to go to people and talk to people and listen to people, you know, more so than just, not that I couldn't have done that on my own, but, you know, to have like hey, I'm here from CBS New York. Can we talk to you about this? To have that kind of reason. Like I'm just grateful that I was able to do that. And that's really what I love about my job so much. That's what love that what I'm able to do because, I get to have an excuse to have conversations with people. Like my excuse is like, oh, I'm a reporter with CBS, so that's my excuse. But because otherwise I'm just a crazy person going around talking to strangers. But like that's what I love so much about what I get to do is just being able to have real conversations.
It's Allie Bauman. You can follow her at Allie Bauman TV. Now, Allie, are you on TikTok?
I am on TikTok.
Okay,
I'm not very good at it, but I'm on it.
I was gonna. Okay, you're on it. You're exploring on it, as we all are, right? Most of the accounts are just people looking at stuff.
Yeah, I'm much better at being a viewer of TikTok than I am of making TikTok.
So a lot of anchors and a lot of reporters have gained some excitement on TikTok, mostly doing teleprompter challenges and getting people to use their news anchor voice.
I haven't seen the teleprompter challenges. I've seen the news anchor voice, but I haven't seen the teleprompter challenge.
I want to talk to you a little bit about this news reporter, news anchor voice, because I hear a whole lot about this on my end, too. I mean, back during my single days, I would go to a bar, meeting up with friends, meet a girl. Oh, you host a radio show. Let me hear your radio voice. I'm like, this is how I talk every day. Listen to the show, and you'll know I sound like a kid who's kind of stuck in puberty for like a little bit of time and never really got fully through it. This is my voice. So this news anchor voice fascination, you don't have a news voice. You're Allie Bauman. That's your voice.
Thank you so much. That is the biggest compliment you would give me because when I saw those videos, I mean, they're hilarious. I love them. I'm not saying anything bad of anyone who doesn't, but I was kind of like, oh, why do you want to have a news anchor voice? Like, I'm trying not to have a news anchor voice. Like, and maybe it's like, I remember we learned in school, like they were so big on like, just talk how you talk, talk how you, and that's how when someone asks like, oh, do you news anchor voice? I'm like, I just talk, the same way you would maybe talk in a job interview. Like, I'm not, sitting, like talking like, with slouched over and, like mumbling and saying a bunch of like slang or whatever. Like, I would talk how I would talk in a job interview, that kind of way. And like, I don't know, I think that because especially now in an era of like fake news, people want to see like genuine people. I think people connect to genuine people. I think that's why, you're as successful and popular as you are, because people can, especially nowadays, can see so through when someone's not being like authentic that I'm trying not to have a news anchor voice. I'm trying just to sound like myself.
Well, you sound just like the Allie Bauman that I know and love and remember from our days at Syracuse. And don't worry, that real aspect, that's everything people want. And I think that's so great. And in being a reporter, you get to show a little bit of personality when it comes to a little bit lighter stories. Now, unfortunately, I doubt you've had any really light stories that are fun. However,
I've had a few.
That's good. In the last year and a half, if you've been able to pull out some lighthearted stories where Allie Bauman can have fun on the air, good for you. Do you remember, for those that don't know, because we're going to go kind of inside baseball here, it's a stand-up, right? Do they still use that term? Is that okay? Yeah. So that's when you see the news reporter, their voiceover, and then you see them doing something. What would you say is the most creative or most fun stand-up moment that you've ever had in a story that you put together and you cut to Allie Bauman and she is bobbing for apples or whatever it might be?
Well, recently I did get to go on the Cyclone because they opened up Coney Island. So the Cyclone, which is one of the old roller coasters there. I did the opening at Coney Island, so I got to go on the Cyclone. That was definitely
Please tell me you didn't get sick on a stand-up, because that's maybe where I would have landed.
No.
Woo!
I got a strong stomach. There was I used to work weekends more, and weekends have a lot more lighter stories. And there was one where I don't remember what exactly it was. It was some kind of like army training type thing in like a park in Brooklyn. And my stand-up was I gotta like we rehearsed it, but I gotta like flip over like an army person. Like he like was showing me how to like flip someone over, and so my stand-up I gotta like flip them over.
Wow. I mean,
that was a good one.
That's the kind of stuff that is memorable, and
I'm sure it was like 90% him jumping and doing all the work and me like pretending to look like I was flipping him over,
It's all theater. It's all theater of the mind. It's all theater of the mind. And Allie, that reminds me of our dear friend Randy Wenner. of maybe a stand-up that he would have done over at Syracuse University. Love that guy. So, Allie Bauman, you can follow her. Please do, because she's super talented. Allie Bauman TV. She is awesome for her age, but it doesn't even matter what age she is. Anybody to be working in the hustle and bustle of New York City every single day, doing what you do, dealing with, quite frankly, all of the negativity surrounding the news. You are a light in that city, and I just can't thank you enough for taking some time for our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Allie Bauman, everybody give her a follow. Thank you, Allie.
Thank you.